How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You're listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I am joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning in to this trip report. And we are not 9 months late on this one like we were on the last one, so that's good.
Yep.
So
true that.
Yeah, so we did keep our promise in that sense. We said we wouldn't be as late on the upcoming trip reports. So
you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Life is crazy sometimes, but we're making this work, and we got a lot of recording to do in the next couple weeks because we got a wedding to head out to in mid-July, and then after that, we do have a trip to Hershey Park coming up, so that'll be exciting. We'll obviously have another trip report for Hershey Park coming after that.
Even though we've been to Hershey.
But we got to talk about Wildcats Revenge.
Yes.
And the new Sky Rush restraints. So we'll have stuff to talk about for sure.
Good
so
stuff.
May not be as long as our other Hershey Park trip reports, but you'll get the idea. So, well, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, first of all, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Usually here we're at Airtime Traveler, we're doing roller coaster history. Obviously today we are doing a trip report, so this is kind of a bonus episode, not one of our typical episodes that we do. But if you're interested in learning about the history of specific roller coasters, we don't do like the history of the roller coaster in general. We take one coaster and then we do a deep dive into the history of that individual coaster. So our last episode, we just did Steel Curtain at Kennywood. Our next episode is going to be a coaster from Worlds of Fun. And then we'll be doing Disney World the episode after that. So got some exciting stuff to look forward to. And we have a good time. And we're closing in on our 50th episode, which is pretty exciting.
Do we have a big one?
I got a big one planned. I've been planning this since the beginning of the season, which one we're going to do for 50.
I'm excited. I don't know what you're planning, but I'm excited.
It's a good one. It's a fan favorite, not just between you and I, but amongst all coaster enthusiasts. It's a very, very highly rated coaster. So
now I'm curious.
So yeah, it's a good one.
You have piqued the curiosity.
So, but for today, ugh, can't talk. But for today, we are just doing a trip report. We're talking about our trip to SeaWorld Orlando just a few months ago, about 6 weeks ago, roughly. Yeah, that's when we went. So
it doesn't feel like it. It feels
I know,
like
I know, it feels like so long ago, but recent enough that we can still talk about it. Whereas the Lagoon one, it was like, okay, now which restaurant did I go to? Like, we've done this recently enough that we'll still know more about what we're talking about here. But and this one's fun because it's the first trip report we've been able to do in a while that Haley and I both went to the park and both got to ride some of these coasters. Just because we've previous to that, if you haven't been listening to the show for a while, Haley was pregnant for most of last year. And so all of the trips we took to amusement parks last year up until November, essentially, Haley didn't get to ride anything. And so, my Holiday World trip report, Kentucky Kingdom, those were by myself. Lagoon was by myself. So this is nice that we both get to kind of share our experience a little bit finally. So it's been a while since we've been able to do that. Now our next trip report, again, will be by myself because Haley wanted to go to Hollywood Studios rather than Busch Gardens Tampa, which is understandable for Haley. Those of you that know her know that she's a big Disney fan, so that's more her cup of tea.
It's true. And I've told Nathan, I'm like, even if I went and just sat and just people watched at Disney, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
I would just, it's my happy place.
So we're talking SeaWorld Orlando today. Now, before we get into the meat of our trip report today, if you want to just skip ahead, I would skip maybe, 10, 15 minutes, because I wanted to take a little bit to talk about something that I was debating whether to do a coaster conversations episode about it, but I don't think there's enough there to talk about yet. But today was probably the biggest day in the amusement industry in a long, long time.
That's true.
And we have to talk about it, even if it's just for a little bit, because today just is historic day in the amusement industry. For better or for worse, that remains to be seen. But today, so if you're, whenever you're listening to this, we're recording this on the evening of July 1st, which many of you coaster enthusiasts will know that earlier today, Six Flags and Cedar Fair officially finalized the merger between the two companies, and it is official that Cedar Fair is no longer a corporate entity. It is now all Six Flags, which is pretty insane. Crazy. So
the thing is, did they decide to like go Six Flags this and Six Flags that?
This is what we know. So quick recap for those of you that may not be all up to date on amusement industry things. So Six Flags is a very well known amusement park chain in the country. It's a very well known brand. All the parks have Six Flags in the name, and if you've grown up in the United States, chances are you know what Six Flags is, right?
Yeah.
Now, Cedar Fair is a little lesser known, but it's just, I would say, probably just as, I would have to look at financials to say for certain, but it's just as big of a company, really, as Six Flags is. It's just that the brand is not as well known because the parks that they own, they kind of tend to let them have their own personalities and it's not super obvious which parks are a part of the chain, but the parks that they own are parks that people are aware of, like Cedar Point and Kings Island, Knott's Berry Farm, very popular amusement parks that have millions of guests a year, but it's just that a lot of people don't even know that Knott's Berry Farm and Cedar Point are part of the same chain. It's not as obvious as Six Flags Great Adventure and Six Flags Magic Mountain. It's pretty obvious that they're, part of the same amusement park chain. So,
right.
But Six Flags and Cedar Fair have been competitors for a very long time, especially during, the early, let's call it the 90s and the early 2000s, during the coaster wars, when people were just trying to break coaster records left and right. It was kind of this big battle between Cedar Fair and Six Flags, especially when at the very end of the coaster war, Cedar Point built Top Thrill Dragster, which was the first 400-foot coaster in the world, opened in 2003. Yeah, 2002, 2003. I think it was 2003. And then Six Flags responded by building King Ka, which is almost the exact same coaster, but like 30 feet taller, so that they took back the record for tallest coaster in the world and built that at Six Flags Great Adventure in 2005.
Right.
So, it's pretty obvious to see that they were quote unquote competitors, at least at that point in history. Obviously, since 2005, Six Flags had a bankruptcy that did a lot of damage to that company. Six Flags has offered to buy the Cedar Fair parks before, and it didn't go through. SeaWorld offered to buy the Cedar Fair parks like a year or two ago. So, I don't know. There's a lot of backstory that we could get into as far as how this is all, gone over the past 60 years since both of these companies really became a thing. But suffice it to say that when they announced in November that the two companies would be merging, there was a lot of mixed emotions amongst enthusiasts. Some enthusiasts like myself are concerned that it will become too monopolistic and will hurt the innovation in the amusement industry because Six Flags and Cedar Fair no longer have to compete with each other. Yeah. Essentially, the only regional park chains they're competing against now are Herschend, which only owns 3 major parks, and the SeaWorld chain, which owns 5 major parks. Meanwhile, the new Six Flags owns 25 major amusement parks in North America. So
that's insane.
It's pretty crazy. So, and then the flip side of that is
that like the most owned in the world?
I would have to look and see worldwide what that looks like. Because, Disney owns 6 here, and then 2 in Europe, and like 4 or 5 in Asia. So, There's other chains that would come close worldwide, but I would have to double check on the numbers and all that. So they're easily the largest chain now in North America by far. Yeah. So I think Disney's probably the next closest at 6. Which is that's a big jump. Now, Disney makes more money with those 6 than Six Flags will make with their 25 probably, which is also just as crazy. But
right.
Anyway, now there's the flip side to that where people are saying that because Six Flags and Cedar Fair are merging, ideally, if you just take the best parts of both companies and improve on the worst parts of both companies, then that should make a better, the idea of 2 heads are better than 1 type of deal, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take, Cedar Fair's operations and combine it with Six Flags innovation and risk taking, does that equal a better product? And I don't know. That's why I said at the beginning of this, time will tell whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. But regardless, it is a major change in the amusement industry, and it's going to be pretty crazy to see how this unfolds in the coming years. So
yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. It's like one of those things that it's like, unless you start seeing changes, it's like, okay, what's gonna happen kind of thing. So
yeah, so as of right now, the only changes we know of, they changed. So the company is now
logos changed, right?
They changed the logo, which I really like the new logo. They basically took.
Pull up a picture of it.
Did you look at it? Have you seen it? Are you
kidding me? I have a 4-year-old to deal with.
I sent it in the family group chat.
Babe, I don't check my text messages during the day. Unless it's directly from you. I barely check my text messages. This is
directly from me, in a sense.
Six Flags Entertainment Corporation.
So they essentially took Six Flags name, which, as we talked about, is a more recognizable brand. So I think that was a smart call. But the new logo is based off of the Cedar Fair colors and the Cedar Fair logo. So I think that's a nice touch where it's showing that it really is
shout out to both.
It really is a merger of the two companies. So
I really don't want them to change the names of all.
Well, if you'll notice, so they put together this map, which this is now a map of the entire park chain. As of right now, no changes to the names of any of the parks. Now, again, time will tell if that changes, but I think at the very least, the big parks on the Cedar Fair side are probably not going to change. I mean, Cedar Point, Kings Island, Knott's Berry Farm, they have too much of a recognizable name to make significant changes, in my mind. Now, you might see them rename it to something like Cedar Point, a Six Flags park, or something like that, or maybe Six Flags Cedar Point, which I hate, but is at least better.
Makes me kind of vomit in my mouth a little bit.
That's at least better than renaming it Six Flags over Lake Erie or something stupid like that.
That one's even worse.
See what I mean? So at least I don't think they're gonna do that. Or Six Flags over Cincinnati for Kings Island. I don't see them doing anything like that. So
no, they better not.
So, but as of right now, no changes to the names of the parks. So, and also as of right now, no real changes operationally. I think for the rest of this season, it's going to be pretty minimal. I think you're going to go, if you go to Kings Island or Cedar Point or Knott's Berry Farm the rest of this year, or any of the Cedar Fair parks, I think you'll see little to no changes whatsoever. I think starting next year is really when we're going to start seeing changes. Now, whether that's operationally or changes to the names of rides or parks, or what was the other thing I was thinking of? One other thing that they've got to figure out is what does this platinum pass look like for the chain now?
Oh yeah. Because
now you're looking at if you offer a platinum pass that gets you into all of the parks, you're looking at a season pass that gets you into, I think it's 25 amusement parks, but if you include the water parks, it's like 42 parks.
That's insane.
So what kind of price tag do you put on a pass that gets you into 42 amusement and water parks across the country? Like, we're talking probably $500 plus.
Do you think that they could possibly like split it up? Like,
it's definitely possible.
Platinum
Like
Pass,
you could either
East
do
Coast, Platinum Pass, Midwest.
You could definitely
Pass.
regionalize it to maybe make it more affordable to some people, or maybe cut out the water parks and just do the amusement parks. Like, there's definitely options for how they could, you know, move things around to make some of the passes more affordable. So the other thing that Six Flags does that Cedar Fair doesn't, Six Flags does, rather than a platinum pass, it's a membership. So you just pay a flat rate every month, and then you can go to any of the Six Flags parks if you just pay your flat rate.
I do like that.
So it's basically a subscription, so to speak, rather than a pass. So they might go that route too.
I like that though.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. You know, the thought process just being you can spread that cost out across 12 months rather than paying it once a year. So time will tell. It's definitely a huge change, and there's not a whole lot of information other than that, which is why I didn't feel like we could do a full episode or a full Coaster Conversations bonus episode about this. Right. But I did want to make sure we at least talked about it because it is just a monumental event in the amusement industry, and we'll see where we go from here. So it is. I'll tell you, it is weird though. Some people are posting screenshots of someone was just on Carowinds' website looking at tickets, and then at the bottom it says copyright Six Flags Entertainment Corporation. It's like, that's a little trippy. It's going to take some getting used to. So, but yeah, it's very, very strange. So hopefully a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, let's talk about a park that has nothing to do with any of that. Let's talk about SeaWorld Orlando. So, in the past few years, we've, tried to hit as many new parks as possible. So, 2022, we did the Cedar Fair thing. We hit Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Knott's Berry Farm, Cedar Point, Carowinds, and just knocked out a bunch of, the headlining Cedar Fair parks. Last year was Hershend plus Holiday World. That was kind of the main parks we were trying to hit last year. We've also done Kennywood and Hershey Park in the mix just because they're pretty close to where Haley's family is from.
Yep.
This was the year that we said, what if we try to hit some of the SeaWorld parks? Now, we're not going to be able to do all of them because SeaWorld San Diego and SeaWorld San Antonio are just a little too far. But we did the SeaWorld Busch Gardens because, they're only like an hour apart from each other. So I did both of those, and obviously we'll have a Busch Gardens Tampa trip report coming soon. And then our plan is in October to go to Busch Gardens Williamsburg. So we'll be able to do those three parks this year, and then we're going to do Hershey Park. Haley got to do Worlds of Fun a few weeks ago, so we'll see if anything else comes to fruition. There's potential for Dollywood. I don't know if we'll go back to Dollywood. That's kind of still up in the air.
We'll see.
So, and then who knows with the new Six Flags Pass next year? Who knows what'll happen next year? That would. There's a lot of legacy Six Flags parks that we haven't been to. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about going down to Texas and going to some of those, but anyway.
Right.
So this is our first time really experiencing anything in the SeaWorld chain. Now, I have been to been to SeaWorld San Diego, but I was like 12. Right. I was still really scared of roller coasters when I went. I think the only ride I went on when we were there was Journey to Atlantis, which is just like it's a water coaster.
Right.
So it's very similar to the one that you saw at SeaWorld Orlando. So
yeah.
But so this is really our first experience with the SeaWorld chain, and so whether that be for better or for worse. But let's just start off. Usually we start off by talking about the atmosphere. I've been talking a lot, so why don't you go first, talk about your thoughts on the atmosphere of SeaWorld Orlando?
I don't know, like it was interesting because I felt like very Epcot-y vibes, like, because of the whole country
like
thing that they had. They had, like, so many different countries, like, different...
different countries?
Yeah, you don't remember that? I asked you, I said, like, what's with them having different booths with the different countries?
Oh, I guess a little bit at the front of the park there.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's not like Epcot where the whole park is based on that.
No, but I was like, this is interesting that, like, they have, like, all these different booths and stuff that have all the different countries. I thought that was interesting.
I think they were having some type of festival too,
like
that
food
kind
festival,
of something like that,
which
again,
I think reminded me of Epcot. I was like, this is very much giving Epcot vibes.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. I don't know. I felt like a majority of my time was spent in Sesame Street World.
Well, so that is interesting because as I've thought about our experience at SeaWorld, I guess I'll preface the whole episode by saying this. Two things were kind of going on while we were at the park. First of all, we had both the kids with us. So you do have to keep that in mind that we didn't really just get to experience the park exactly how we wanted to.
Right.
We also had a toddler and I guess 6-month-old at the time that we were trying to appease. So a lot of our day was spent doing that. And so...
Let's go see Elmo. Let's go see Cookie Monster.
Now...
Mommy, I want to see Big Bird.
And then the other thing that was going on is I was dealing with some type of stomach bug that day.
Yep.
So I did not even get on all the coasters. I will say that up front. But I got on all the ones that were absolute must-dos for me, and then some of the other ones I'll have to go back and check them off later. But so I will say that up front. Now, you talking about Sesame, I don't remember exactly what it's called. Sesame. Do they call it Sesame Place just like the amusement parks that they have are called? Maybe. Things to do, rides and attractions. Sesame Street Land is what it's called there.
Okay.
I think Sesame... This is so fascinating. Sesame Street Land is like the best atmosphere in the whole park.
Right, it's very well themed.
Which is so strange. Now, granted, there were parts of the actual park that were better than others. Like, the theming around the entrance to Mako was really good.
Yes.
Like, they had the music playing as the coaster whooshes by.
They had the stingray tank.
Oh, yeah, and, like, you didn't get to see this, but as you're in line for Manta, there's, like, manta ray aquariums in the queue that were really cool. Mm-hmm. So there were parts of it that felt really well-themed and had a good atmosphere.
The surf coaster, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, Pipeline has a pretty good, like, if they've the landscaping over there.
Yeah, it was cool.
The landscaping over there is fantastic. Like, you can tell they brought in a bunch of sand from the beach and, like, you know,
playing like beach songs and beach vibes. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, very good. So,
and like the animal exhibits were nice. Like they had some pretty nice like the dolphins, and Parker and I and Harmony went over and looked at like the Arctic animal exhibits, and that was actually really neat to kind of go and look at those exhibits. So, but
there were parts of the park that just felt kind of generic.
Right.
The one that really sticks out to me is over by Icebreaker. I mean, Icebreaker is in theory supposed to be themed to like an Arctic theme, right? But like that whole area is like the restaurant attached to it is just like a burger place, and then there's like they were having some like Cinco de Mayo festival there too, so I don't know if that was kind of messing with the vibe a little bit, but it was just kind of strange, like this Arctic themed coaster, and then we got like Cinco de Mayo right here. It was kind of strange.
Well, even the water coaster was kind of random because it felt like an Egyptian, not a Mayan tower thing, but like there wasn't any real theming
it's like
around
well,
that.
it's Atlanta. The name of the coaster is Journey to Atlanta, right. So that's the whole theme.
But like I just felt like that was it. Like they had
the coaster itself is really well themed, like the entrance building and the queue and obviously the building that it's housed in. But then, like, once you leave that area, there's, like, nothing.
Nothing, right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So, I wish they had more theming around each coaster.
Kind of like Mako does. Like, they did a good job with that with Mako, but some of the other rides, it's kind of like, it stops at the entrance. Mm-hmm. And, like, from there, it's just kind of, there's nothing else. So,
right. So, right.
Yeah. So, there like, are areas of the park that are really well done, and then others that it's kind of like, they could have done better.
Right.
So, but yeah, not the worst atmosphere I've had at an amusement park, not the best. Falls somewhere in the middle there. Yeah. So,
but Sesame Street Land was really cute.
It was very cute. I was impressed. Now, because I went to Busch Gardens, and they have their own Sesame Street themed area. I think it's not Sesame Street Land. It's like it's almost like.
Sesame Street Place.
Oh no, but it's a different theme. It's almost like a jungle or an outdoorsy theme there. Where here at SeaWorld, it's like they wanted to recreate Sesame Street, and so it was pretty cool. Like, they actually recreated some stuff. It looked like it was from the set, and Parker just loved running around and checking out all the interactive things. And yeah. And there was like a nice
so much interactive things.
And like there's this nice little spot kind of back behind one of the buildings where they had like some turf laid out. And so we just let the baby like kind of crawl around while Parker was, looking at some of the interactive things around there.
And it was nice because it was like kind of out of the flow of traffic, so like not a lot of people were there.
It was the afternoon, so there was some shade as the sun was kind of really setting. Nice. So
like I felt comfortable because we were able to see Parker do all of the interactive things. Like they laid it out so well. That I don't know, it was just nice to be able to sit in the middle and be like, oh yeah, Parker, why don't you go play over there, and we can see you and we can hear you, and I'm not worried about him getting snatched or anything because we could still see him and hear him, and he was close enough to us. And I think that was just really well thought out and laid out. I felt like they brought in a team of actual parents and be like, okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? I thought that was all really well thought out and planned. So.
And then they had meet and greets that Parker really loved too. We got to meet Elmo and Big Bird, right?
Elmo and Cookie Monster, Abby, Cadabby.
There was another one that we didn't
Rosita?
know. I think that's her name.
I think it's her, Rosita. And then they met another. Shoot, I can't remember. Her name.
I can't remember.
He met one more that was a special June autistic one, and I can't remember her name.
I don't know.
Something like that, but
so
he met a few of the characters.
Yeah, he had a good time there. So yeah, I really did enjoy the atmosphere there. They did a good job with that. So let's talk about food for a minute. One of the biggest surprises from not just SeaWorld but Busch Gardens too was just how egregious the price is for the food.
Yeah.
Oh my word. I always try to budget out, how much we're going to spend whenever we do these amusement park trips. And I don't really look at the menus. I kind of have a general feel for how much amusement park food is going to be, right? I've done this enough that I really understand kind of what I'm getting myself into. And in my mind, I've always budgeted extra for parks like Disney and Universal, where I know it's going to be more money. I did not expect SeaWorld to be more expensive than Disney. Yeah. Now, granted, we didn't do any... This is just quick service. Sit-down Disney is obviously way more expensive than anything we did at SeaWorld. But I'm just talking quick service Disney compared to quick service SeaWorld. SeaWorld was more expensive, and I was not anticipating that.
Right.
I think that my first wake-up call was literally, we'd been at the park for 30-45 minutes, and our toddler Parker was complaining that he was thirsty, and we had water, but he didn't want that. He wanted some juice, and I was like, fine, I'll just go get a Powerade at, this little shop or whatever.
It was like $8.
It was literally $8 for a Powerade.
It was insane.
And one of the things that the SeaWorld parks, all of them, I guess now that they're actually, the name of the chain now is United Parks. Is actually just rebranded like a month or two ago. So technically that's what I should be calling them. But but this is like a thing. All of the United Parks now, so that's all SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, and I think the Sesame Place parks too. They all have added surcharges to all their merchandise and their food, which is just ridiculous to me, because it's like, just increase the cost of the item. Like, if it's really a problem where you need to, increase the cost of something so that you can cover your expenses, fine. But don't hide that behind a 5% surcharge that is not listed in the price. All they have is like a little sign on the, the register that says, all purchases will include a 5% surcharge for blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, just throw that in the price of the item. Like, don't try to hide this from me. That's just manipulative and sneaky, and just trying to make your costs look better than they really are.
Yeah.
So, because you walk up there and you're like, oh, Powerade, $4.50, and then with surcharge and taxes and everything, it ends up being like $8 after all that, and you're like, that's crazy. So I'm probably exaggerating those numbers. It was probably more like $5.50 or $6, and then it ends up being $8. But you get the idea, right? It's crazy expensive. Whereas Disney, you pay like $4.50 or $5 for that same bottle of Powerade, which it's just crazy to me. I mean, this is SeaWorld we're talking about.
Right.
It's a major amusement park, yes, but it is no Disney. Let's be clear about that.
Yes.
And so there's no reason why the food should be that much more expensive. And it wasn't just the Powerade. Like, we went to, so let's talk about the food that we had. So the one I know we went to Voyager Smokehouse for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say it was very good.
It was good.
It was good. So.
Yeah. Not worth the price, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like, we live in an area where there's lots of barbecue places, and so we're a little biased.
No,
but
we're barbecue snobs. You can fully admit it.
Not like some people, though. Like, I definitely know people that are worse than I am, but like, it was decent. Like, I don't remember exactly what I got, but I know Haley got a rotisserie chicken. That was
actually really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wait, was it chicken or turkey? Maybe turkey.
I
can't remember now if it was chicken or turkey.
Something.
Either way, very, very good, and better than what I had, honestly, because I can't even remember what I had. I just remember what you had. So it was pretty crazy in there. There was a really long line. And
oh my gosh!
It took a long time to get food, but we were there on a Friday. Yeah, so
yeah, it was busy.
Yeah, a little busy that day, but yeah, it was expensive though. So and like I don't even remember. Was that the only like meal that we had? I think it may have been. I think if I remember correctly, I think the park closed at like 6.
Oh yeah, we went.
And so we went. Yeah, so we went somewhere for dinner outside of the park.
Yeah. Which was worth it because I really liked the pizza place that we went
honestly,
to.
honestly, that pizza was probably the best thing we had that day. So that's yeah. So not a whole lot to say about food since we only had the one thing, and we had snacks here and there, but it was just so dang expensive that was kind of like I'd rather save that money to spend on Epcot rather than spending it. Like, if we're being completely honest here.
I'm still drooling over the corn on the cob that we had at Epcot.
We gotta save it. We gotta save that for the Disney World trip report.
Let's just take a moment. Okay.
There's some good stuff.
Oh, man.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing that really it came down to was like, is this worth it? Because we could have eaten dinner at the park, but it was just like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So, let's talk a little bit. I don't think we didn't do a lot of non-roller coasters. I mean, you and Parker did a few of the
Sesame Street.
Yeah, like in Sesame Street, the
train.
There's the train here.
Like
I'll pull up the rides here so we make sure we don't miss anything.
Yeah. We did
Elmo's Choo Choo Train. Is that the one?
Elmo's Choo Choo Train. Like 10 times. We did the Sunny Day Carousel.
Yep, there you go.
And he didn't want to really do anything else there.
Yeah, we've talked about. I think we've talked about this before. Can't remember honestly, but we've been dealing with Parker having some sensory issues, and so up until this point, it's been really hard to get him to ride anything. But his therapist recommended some noise canceling headphones for this trip, and actually, it was a whole new world for him as far as like he rode almost everything that he could have while we were on that trip and enjoyed everything he went on. Yeah. Like 99% of it. Yeah. So we'll talk more about that with Disney because that's really where, it made the biggest difference. But this was the first day of that trip was at SeaWorld, so we were kind of testing the waters, so to speak, that day. Right. And didn't really know how he was going to do until she went to Hollywood Studios the next day. And right. So anyway, so like I said, we'll talk more about that with Disney. But he did write a few things while we were at SeaWorld, which was, that was a win for us because it had been rough going to Silver Dollar City trying to get him on things. We'd go to the park and he'd ride like one ride all day. And that's basically how all of 2023 went. Even when we went to Dollywood, he rode like 2 things. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's that's kind of how it's been for a while. So, but I think I may have been able to get him on Super Grover's Boxcar Derby, but
we didn't want to push it.
Well, and we got to a point in the day that between me not being 100% and after doing some math, I kind of figured out that if I skipped out on some, because I was already not 100%, and so I was trying to figure out which coasters I was going to prioritize, and as we started getting towards the end of the day, I kind of did some quick math, and I realized that I could make what coaster I could make my number 150 credit by skipping out on some of the SeaWorld coasters. We'll talk about that later as to, all these other trip reports that are coming up. We'll talk about what coaster ended up being number 150, but I just decided to skip out on a couple credits at SeaWorld so that I could make the number 150 coaster a kind of funky one that ended up being one of our favorites we've ever done. Yes. So that was definitely worth it. And so I think we just decided let's not put him on Boxcar Derby, and we'll just try roller coasters while we're at Disney. And so we'll talk about that later. But so I think that's really all we have to say about flat rides. I mean, there's not a whole lot there to begin with. It's really very much a roller coaster park with a few flat rides and then a lot of marine life. That's really what it comes down to. And even in their advertisements lately, they're calling themselves the roller coaster capital of Orlando. That's kind of what they're advertising themselves at now. Right. And so they've built a roller coaster. They opened one in, I'm trying to get this right. Actually, I have it right here, actually. They opened one in 2016, and then 2022, 2023, and 2024. They've opened a new roller coaster. Yep. So, I mean, there are very few parks that have built 4 roller coasters in the last 8 years. So, that tells you where their priorities are at right now, for sure. So, but anyway. With that being said, why don't we dive into what we're always here to talk about? Let's talk about
coasters.
Let's talk about the roller coasters. Now, like I said, there's a few of these.
We're not going back in time. This is present day.
No, this is present day. We're not time traveling today.
So screw the time traveling.
Oh, that's a little aggressive.
Just kidding. A little aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it today. I'm feeling aggressive.
Now, like we mentioned at the top of the show, did not ride all of the coasters.
Well, especially me. I feel like I went.
You only went on two.
Two, yeah.
With the kids, so.
Yeah,
but,
I wanted to get on more, but I just.
It was just tough. The kids were struggling. Oh, that's the other thing. It was really hot that day too.
Oh my gosh, it was
and
hot.
There's not a lot of shade at the park.
That was one of my biggest complaints.
Yeah.
Is there was like very, very little shade.
Yeah, so that was tough. The kids.
Like I had to go searching for like a place to sit and
didn't
shade.
you and Parker and Harmony were like hanging out where the
amphitheater,
yeah, just like under like a cement structure over by the amphitheater. Like that's where we ended up there for like 20 minutes just cooling off.
Well, so. I kept going back. The problem is too is like the nursing station is in Sesame Street Land, which is great, except when you have a 4-year-old who doesn't want to leave Sesame Street Land.
And every time you go back, then you have to try to leave.
Yes.
And, yeah.
So it was kind of a pain. So I had to like go other places and find other places to feed our baby. And
it was tough. So
yes, it was kind of a long day. But.
So that all to be said, neither of us rode Super Grover's Boxcar Derby, which is the family coaster there. Neither of us went on Journey to Atlantis. I was in line for Journey to Atlantis when we finally just decided to call it a day because the line was like an hour for Journey to Atlantis, an hour. I'm like, I will be back here someday. I don't need to wait an hour for this ride.
Right.
And then because my stomach was really bothering me, I decided to skip out on Kraken too because I think it was 7 inversions on Kraken, I think.
Something crazy like
so,
that.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about that. So I was like, you know what, there's more stuff at Busch Gardens tomorrow that I really want to make sure I get on. So I'm going to prioritize that and not worry about SeaWorld for today. So that leaves 4 coasters for us to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's start with, we always do these in reverse order of where they're ranked in the Coaster Bot ranking. So that leaves us to talk about Icebreaker first.
No, I did not get on this one.
No, you did not do Icebreaker. Now, Icebreaker was the second coaster I rode in the day. And it was kind of the coaster that tipped me off that I was not feeling 100%. Yeah. Which is strange because it doesn't go upside down at all, but it does go backwards.
And so, you've never done go with backwards.
Yeah,
rides.
but it doesn't go backwards very much. Like it's like an airtime hill and then a backward spike, and then it goes forwards again. So it was a weird thing. Now, so I tried because I got super sick on Icebreaker for some reason. I don't know if I was dehydrated on top of not feeling good, and so that exacerbated it. But I'm trying to, when I'm looking at the coasters and how I felt about them, I'm trying to put aside how my body was feeling that day, and really, I've been on enough coasters that I feel like I can get a general feel for how I actually should have felt about the ride, not how I felt about it in the moment.
Right.
Because one of the things I noticed about Icebreaker is the airtime was way more intense than I was anticipating, which is interesting because so the coaster was originally billed as a family coaster when it was first announced. And then, and you can see it's a 48 inches minimum height, which is lower than all the other, coasters, 54, 54, 54, and then I guess Journey to Atlantis is 42, and then Super Grover's is 38. So it falls somewhere between Journey to Atlantis and all the big coasters, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when the coaster opened, though, they actually moved it from 48 up to 52 with all the other ones, just as they were doing testing and everything. So it's kind of an interesting coaster where I feel like it ended up being more intense than they anticipated. And it definitely felt that way. Like, some of the elements were just the way that they twisted and just how intense they were. Kind of felt like almost like an RMC at times. Mm-hmm. Which was surprising for how small the coaster is. But, modern coasters can, they've kind of figured out how to pack a punch into smaller coasters nowadays. So,
yep.
I don't remember too much other than that because kind of halfway through the ride, I was trying to
not throw it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do think I would enjoy it a lot more now going on it. I've heard a lot of people say bad things about it, and just I got sick on it, but I think that's unrelated. I feel like it's better than what people give it credit for, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why people have hated on it so much. Maybe just because it's Premier Rides and people like to give Premier Rides a hard time. But I mean, it's an interesting layout. It's one of the only multi-pass roller coasters in the country. One of only 3, 4, something like that. So it's definitely unique, a unique attraction, and so very picturesque too. I got a lot of good pictures of it because that orange really pops against the blue sky.
You taking so many pictures.
I took a lot of pictures of Icebreaker. So probably my favorite picture I took at SeaWorld that day was actually probably of Icebreaker. So
he loves taking pictures.
That's like half the fun for me, honestly. I enjoy watching them almost as much as I enjoy riding them. So
if we have, any listeners that take photos listening to this, like, what are your recommendations for a good camera for the future? For the future. Listen. Shush. So, in the future, not even in the near future, but sometime in the future, I would like to get Nathan a nice camera.
The problem is in the interim, their suggestion or their recommendation might change depending on how long it takes us to buy one.
It's true.
So.
I mean, right now he just uses his phone, but they still turn out pretty amazing.
I did upgrade my phone specifically for the purpose of taking better pictures of roller coasters, so that should tell you what kind of coaster enthusiast I am.
Yeah, and he's too humble right now that, like, he doesn't give himself enough credit with his pictures, but he's, like, other places have taken your photos and posted them on their page.
A couple times, so.
Come on. That's impressive.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. So.
It is. It's impressive.
Let's see. The next one we have to talk about, which kind of surprises me that it's this far down the list. Next one is Pipeline.
I loved Pipeline.
So Pipeline is such a unique experience that I've never had on a coaster before.
Yeah. That one was cool. I liked that one.
It's so if you're not familiar with Pipeline. So Pipeline is a standing coaster, which nowadays are far and few between. There are not very many left, mostly because the ones that were built in the 80s and 90s were just so terribly uncomfortable that people just, the older they got, people stopped riding them. And the few that are left, I mean, there's, oh man, I'm gonna miss some, but there's Vortex at Carowinds, which I've been on, and it's not terrible. There's Georgia Scorcher at Six Flags Over Georgia. And then the one that people say is still pretty good is Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure? Or Six Flags Magic Mountain. I'm pretty sure I'm going to mix that up. I'm pretty sure it's Green Lantern at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now it's going to bother me. I'm locking in. That's my answer. That's not the one. Hold on. Haley's giving me this look of, oh, you're gonna mess this up.
Oh.
I don't think I was right. I think it is Six Flags Great Adventure. Does Six Flags Magic Mountain have a standing coaster? I thought they did. You would think with 20 coasters, one of these is a stand-up coaster. Oh, it's Riddler's Revenge. That's the one at Six Flags Magic Mountain. That's right.
Fail.
Oh, bummer.
Fail.
So it is Green Lantern. It must be Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure then. That's the other one. Which I think we actually talked about that one a few weeks ago. It used to be at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. Yeah, that's the one. Six Flags. Kentucky Kingdom. And then it got moved to Great Adventure when Kentucky Kingdom closed after the Six Flags bankruptcy. So anyway, stand-up coasters, far and few between, and they haven't really built a new one in like 20 years. And that was until SeaWorld announced Pipeline for 2023. So just built last year. And the big difference with Pipeline was to make it more comfortable, the seats essentially have... It's not quite a suspension system, but it's similar in the sense that the seats move up and down. Mm-hmm. So that way they kind of take the seats like take the shock of it. Yeah, the seats take the G-force more so than your body, so that way it's more comfortable on.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. So, but the other,
being a short person too, your feet come right up for the ground.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The other byproduct of that is that when you go over the airtime hills, you actually fly up and out, like your feet
dangle
like you fly up in the air, like it feels like you're gonna fly off of the coaster, and you're just like
awesome.
It was very strange to feel like airtime in a sense where you're like standing up and literally feel your body like floating up off of the coaster.
Literally.
Like a very very
unique
experience.
Yeah.
So
well, it was fun because like you let me ride this one first because you rode the last one first. And so that was fun to be able to experience before you and be like, oh my gosh, she's gonna freak out. Like,
she was pretty nervous because she's never been on a stand-up coaster before.
Right.
And so this was a completely new experience for her.
Right.
And this is also the only launched stand-up coaster that's ever been constructed. So
it was insane.
So like standing up while being launched, and then there's one inversion, a bunch of airtime moments.
Well,
so
and like it was just funny because like standing in line, being by myself, my heart was racing, and I was, like, freaking out. But what was funny is there was, like, a group of, like, older teenage boys in front of me, and, like, their reaction, like, getting launched was hilarious. Like, you know, cussing up a storm, and, like, you know, freaking out, and, like, the ride operators were dying. They're like, oh my gosh, they're such sissies. Like...
That's just teenagers, though.
Yeah,
I feel like they're just louder, more vocal about their emotions.
Yeah, very dramatic about it all. It was just really funny, though.
Especially when they're playing off of each other.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Let's see who can be more dramatic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because we'll get to Manta in a second, but I rode in between 3 teenage boys that were all together, so... So... Yeah, Pipeline, and then that's the thing with Pipeline is I enjoyed it so much more than it seems other people do. Now, people don't dislike it, but people have kind of mixed feelings about it. So it ranks at number 108 in the Coaster Bot ranking, so just outside the top 100. And it could move forward this year as more people get down there to ride it for the first time, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of people that are like, didn't impress me as much as I thought, and I'm just like,
yeah, I don't know what they were writing that like is more impressive than
there were only 2 complaints I had about the ride. One is that coming down out of the airtime hills, it's still a little uncomfortable, but not nearly. If you've ever been on a regular stand-up coaster,
right,
there's night and day difference. So it's not too much complaining you can do when comparing it to what stand-up coasters used to be. And then the operations were just total garbage, and I don't know if that's just because it's a new model and there's more safety checks they have to do, but my word,
the line was really long.
And it wasn't even that long, but it was still like a 30-minute wait because the dispatches were like 3 or 4 minutes a piece.
Right,
so
I remember that being really terrible.
So anyway, but yeah, I thought it was a great ride. It was a lot of fun. Wish I had been feeling good enough that day to ride it multiple times, because it was definitely a ride that had a lot of re-rideability, and it was a good time.
Well, I wish the ride operations were
That's true. We didn't have time to sit in line for another 40 minutes apiece. So, and that takes us to the next coaster, which we just briefly mentioned, which is Manta, the coaster, or the park's flying coaster. I will say Kraken actually falls in between Pipeline and Manta in the Coaster Bot rankings, but I did not ride Kraken, so we'll have to talk about that one some other time when we visit SeaWorld again. But Manta was actually amongst all these parks that I've been to, Cedar Fair has not. Let me think through this again. I don't think Cedar Fair has built a flying coaster at any of their parks. Canada's Wonderland has Time Warp, but that I barely count that one. Time Warp is like, okay, I gotta show you this thing now.
Oh dear. Okay.
Time Warp, Canada's Wonderland. I don't want videos, I want images. There, that's Time Warp. So that's the train.
Oh.
So it's like there you go. It's just one row of 4 people. Oh. But the coaster's like tiny and like, I don't know. I've heard Time Warp. Where's Time Warp fall on the coaster pod rankings?
Oh wow. Okay, here we go.
It's Canada's. Oh, I forgot I've got this filtered by US coasters. It's not going to show up. Anyway, I've heard Time Warp called one of the worst coasters that people have ever been on. Like,
what?
That's
funny.
Why? They say that, well, here's a good look at the trains. That'll give you a good idea why.
Oh my gosh. It's like being in like
being in a cage.
I was going to say like a cage or an umpire helmet.
Yeah, it really is. And they've got these big bulky pads up by your head, so you can imagine that you're just slamming your head into those the whole time. So yeah. Anyway, so I think that's the only flying coaster in the Cedar Fair chain, I'm pretty sure. So Manta was the first flying coaster that I have been on. Haley's been on one before, but at Six Flags Over Georgia.
Superman.
Yep. But I had not been on one yet, so that was a completely new experience, especially on a day when I wasn't feeling 100%. I'm like, this could go a lot of ways. So, but I did really enjoy my ride on Manta. I think I'll enjoy it more when I get to go back and be 100%, but I did have a lot of fun on it. It's definitely well themed, and the splashdown over the pond outside the ride is a really nice effect. I rode front row so that I could just kind of feel the wind in my face, which was a lot of fun. And
that would have been so cool. I wish I would have gotten on that one.
Yeah, it was.
I can't remember why I didn't get on that one, but
I don't remember. I remember asking you if you wanted to, and we were just kind of 50-50 on it. It was towards the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I was just so tired.
I think that was my last ride of the day, if I remember correctly. So I think it was just kind of like.
I think we're just ready to go. Like, we were separated, and I think you were like, "Do I just get on it?" I was like, "Yeah, just get on it."
Gotcha. Because the line had kind of jumped around most of the day. Mm-hmm. It had gone from like 20 minutes up to like 70 minutes, and like I think when I got on, it was like a 30-minute wait, and ended up being like 20, 25. So it was just kind of hard to plan when we wanted to get on it. And also operationally, flying coasters, as a rule of thumb, have terrible operations just because it takes forever to load the train anyway, let alone, then tipping riders back up onto, back and forth between being upright and back to flying position. So flying coasters have a reputation for having bad operations. So That's just kind of inherent in the model. But yeah, it was a good ride though. I had a lot of fun. The pretzel loop was absolutely insane, just like everybody says. Yeah, very intense moment to start the ride off. And then it just kind of is more graceful from there. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now the teenage boys I was with, so there was 3 of them. And so I obviously just jumped in with them, but for some reason they decided to put me in the middle. So they put two on one side and then one on the other. And then they were like asking what my name was, and just like, I'm like,
you make friends, which is so funny because you're not extroverted.
Well, when other people are asking questions, I'm not just gonna ignore them. So, but
it's just so funny.
It was kind of funny. And then when the ride was over, they were like, "Should we act like we passed out?" And so all of them pretended like they had passed out on the ride. I was like, that's such a teenage boy thing to do.
Yes. That's hilarious.
I'm sure I did that at some point when I was their age.
Yeah, you, Cody, and Tevitt would totally do something like
definitely. So. That brings us to the number one ride in the park, according to the CoasterBot rankings at least. That is the one and only Mako, which is largely considered the best hypercoaster in the country. And I'll just say it now, it's my favorite that I've been on so far.
Hypercoaster-wise?
It's my favorite hypercoaster I've been on. Now, well, let me clarify that. Let me look at my rankings here, because I think it's my favorite B&M hypercoaster I've been on. But I think if you're technically going by, well, no, actually, yeah, looking at these, it is my number one hypercoaster as of right now. Now, we'll have to see if that changes when we get on Skyrush in a few weeks and see how those new restraints on Skyrush impact our opinion of Skyrush. But as of right now, it is my number one hypercoaster. So just beating out Diamondback at Kings Island. So I think, so again, Mako was the first ride we did. I knew it was in the back of the park. I didn't know how crazy the line would get, but it was kind of my number one priority ride that day.
Right.
And so I was just like, let's just knock it out first.
Right.
That way, if it goes down the rest of the day, we don't have to worry about it. That's kind of always in the past, I've been like, well, you don't want to ride the best ride first, because that's all downhill from there. But the more I've gone to parks, I've realized you should really knock out your priority ride first, in case for some reason it goes down for the rest of the day and you don't get it in, because that would suck, right? So that's kind of been my rule of thumb recently. So it was like, let's do Mako first, get that out of the way, and make sure we get a ride on it. So again, I wasn't feeling 100% when I got off Mako. Not as bad as when I rode Icebreaker for sure, but so I try to take my experience on Mako with a grain of salt. But the one thing that Mako does really well is just it has a couple elements that some of the other hypercoasters really don't have. Like this, there's this, like the first airtime hill isn't even really an airtime hill. It's kind of like an overbank turn that then drops back down to the left, and
nuts, yeah.
It's a really crazy moment, and because you're like, at that point you're still like 170 feet in the air when you go through that element, and then it also has a speed hill partway through the layout, which a lot of the older hypercoasters don't have. Orion at Kings Island has an element similar, where it's a much lower to the ground hill, and so you just kind of fly over that hill
it was intense.
at full speed. Yeah, and it's a long ride too. Not as long as some hypercoasters, but longer than most, I would say. So there was a lot of ride time, which obviously impacts how you feel about a coaster, I think. And so I wouldn't say it's head and shoulders above all the other hypercoasters we've been on, but it just edged out, Diamondback, Thunder Striker, Candemonium, some of the other ones that I've been on. So it was a lot of fun. So I don't know what thoughts you have about Mako.
Intense. I just remember getting off and like literally having to stop and catch my breath. Like, cause it was just intense. Like I'm not very good with like memory wise, so like remembering like the details like you do, but I just remember like moments, and that was one of my moments, was like holy moly, catch my breath kind of thing. So
yeah, let's see, I'm looking at the open up the layout here. That is not there we go, that's better. So yeah, because you go through this, and then you have the first big airtime hill, go through this overbank that takes you back, and then there's a couple more airtime hills, and then that speed hill that's like halfway through the layout. So it's just a lot of fun. Here's a better look at the layout, because that speed hill then takes you into the brake run, and then after that it's kind of just meanders back to the station. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of airtime.
Yes.
And then definitely some more unique elements that I don't know what they call this. to me, it just is like almost an overbanked turn. That first turn after the first drop is basically just an overbanked turn. But yeah, very fun, very good ride, and yeah. I don't think too much other to say to that. We did talk about that we like the theming outside the ride.
Yes.
Every time because the coaster kind of has this moment where it comes up and over the entrance and then makes like this big sweeping turn before coming back into the station.
Very loud, like it's a very noisy ride. Because I remember having to like calm Parker down every time
that's right. Yeah, that's why he had a meltdown outside the ride because it was so loud. I remember that now. Yeah, that's just kind of inherent with B&M coasters. Unfortunately, they tend to be one of the louder attractions. So it's also really hard to get pictures of Mako, which is unfortunate, just because it's kind of there's like this lagoon at the back of the park that is accessible to park employees to like drive from one side of the park to the other, but there's no pathway back there, and so you can't like the coaster is basically just like out away from where the guests are, and then it comes back. So I think if you really were working hard, you could probably drive. There's probably a road outside of the park that you could drive down and take pictures from outside the park, but I don't know, we didn't have the time to really look into that. So
or energy.
Yeah, that's true. So I didn't get a lot of great pictures of Mako, but yeah, very good ride. Had a lot of fun. So, also one of my favorite paint schemes on a roller coaster ever, I have to say. Like just this, with the purple with like the teal spine on the back, just looks so good, just so clean. It's a very nice. I like when parks go for the two-tone coaster track. There's not a lot of parks that do it, but when they do, especially it's really on B&M coasters that parks will do that. Most of the other manufacturers don't offer that, or if they do, I haven't seen them do that. But yeah, Mako, it looks very nice, the two-tone track. So, well, that is all of the coasters at SeaWorld. I think the only thing we have to do is to rank them. This won't take Haley very long. She just has to decide whether Pipeline or Mako was her favorite.
Pipeline, probably.
See, that's interesting because I kind of struggled choosing which of the two were my favorite. And so out of the 4 that I rode that day, I could guess where the other ones are going to fall based on other coasters I've been on. For example, Kraken is generally considered one of the best floorless coasters in the country, but my highest rated floorless coaster is Dominator at King's Dominion, which falls below Icebreaker even for me. So I don't know. I can make a guess at where Kraken is going to rank, but for now I'm just going to leave it out. I'm just going to rank the 4 coasters that I actually rode that day. So number 4 for me was Manta, which doesn't mean it was a bad coaster. I enjoyed the other coasters at the park more. So I'm generally more inclined towards airtime coasters than I am towards inversion coasters.
True.
So the other 3 coasters I went on that day are airtime focused rather than inversion focused. So that just kind of by nature puts Manta lower down in my rankings than the other ones. And then number 3, obviously Icebreaker. We'll see if that changes, if I can get a ride on Icebreaker that I can actually not be just focused on not passing out or throwing up.
Yep.
But I did enjoy it for, from what I can gather up from memory.
Recall, yeah.
Yes. So and then so that left me kind of in the same spot as you, as Pipeline or Mako. And my initial gut reaction was Pipeline was my favorite. But again, because of how I was feeling that day, I tried to take that into account because I did get a little sick on Mako and I really didn't at all on Pipeline. And so I tried to take that into account. And so I ended up ranking Pipeline as my number 2 at the park and then Mako as my number 1. So, but I did rank Pipeline even, just in general, here, let's look at my comparisons here. So Pipeline, where did I put it? It's right here. I have it ranked 22 spots higher than the CoasterBot rankings would recommend, just based on all the other rides that I've been on. So I liked it a lot more than most people do, which is kind of interesting. So, meanwhile, Mako is almost exactly where the CoasterBot rankings would suggest it would be in my rankings. So, well, there you go.
Yep.
So,
there we go.
So,
sorry, I'm fading fast.
That's all right. We're pretty much done here. So, just one final thought, I suppose, just kind of wrap it up. It was a very good park. I will definitely be going back. So,
yes, I agree, and I would love to take the kids back when they're older.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely, they have some kid stuff to do, and Parker could spend all day at Sesame Street Land, but definitely the park is focusing on roller coasters. Now, that does bring up a good point, though. In 6 days, they're opening their new roller coaster for 2024, Penguin Trek, which is a family coaster, family launch coaster. So that kind of, falls in the middle there. It's like they're building more roller coasters, but this one is less intense than, their past few.
Right.
So they did pass holder previews today, from what I understand, and the reception has been very good so far. A lot of people saying it's very fun, saying the theming is fantastic, that they've done a great job with actually there's like a dark ride portion at the beginning, I think, and they're saying that they just did a really good job with it. So I've heard good things, and that's... when we first planned the SeaWorld Busch Gardens, I knew both of them had roller coasters under construction that were, quote, to open in the spring, unquote, but neither of them have come even close to opening in the spring.
That's true.
Because Penguin Trek is opening later this week, but Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens is testing right now, but we still don't have an opening date, so weren't even close to getting on either of them when I was hoping they would be open for our trip, and it's not even close. So, just gives us more reasons to go back in the future, I suppose. True. So
I keep telling that to Nathan, like anytime we don't get to do a trip like that he wants to do, like we didn't get to do some places in Texas that we really wanted to hit up this year, and like, Nathan, they're going to stay there. They're gonna be there.
But what if after the merger, Six Flags just shuts them all down?
Here we go. We're gonna fight on our podcast over here.
We're not gonna fight.
No, we barely ever fight. But
it's just that's in the back of my head is like the what ifs.
Oh no!
What if they close? What if they close tomorrow? No. What was the other one we were talking about? Knoebels. We were talking about trying to do Knoebels over in Pennsylvania.
I was like, Nathan.
It's like, we're doing too much already. We've got a wedding, and we're going to Hershey Park, and we're going on the train, and but it's right there.
But it's right there.
I want to ride Phoenix. I see all these other enthusiasts that are in the 400s of coaster credits, and I'm like, oh, I want to get there.
I'm still a baby.
Me sitting in the mid 100s right now. So
someday you have more than me.
That's true. I think you're coming up on 100. We got to figure that out before we go to.
Watch me be at 100 already.
Watch Wildcats Revenge be your 100. What if you're at 99 right now and you just have no idea?
No idea.
Who knows? Well, thank you for tuning in to this trip report for SeaWorld Orlando. If you liked that, be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Helps people find the podcast in the future. And we've got other trip reports coming for Busch Gardens Tampa and Disney World and Worlds of Fun, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. And if you enjoyed this episode or this trip report, be sure to check out our regular episodes where we talk about roller coaster history.
Okay, because those are cool too.
Yeah, we enjoy talking about those, and a lot of people have told us that they really enjoy it. So it's a fun time, and we get to talk about stories that a lot of people haven't heard about some of these coasters. And so we just did Steel Curtain in our last episode. We'll be doing Worlds of Fun in our next episode, so be sure to tune in and check those out. Yeah. I won't tell you which coaster, though. I'll tell you it's one of the wooden coasters. That doesn't narrow it down much.
No, it doesn't.
Well, thank you for tuning in to this trip report for SeaWorld Orlando, and we will see you in the next one.